Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube and just YouTube because we are working out some kinks here on our end. So we apologize to the handful of people who watch on Twitter, but most people are not really, hip to that yet because the live stream and the ability to really post and go to Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called hasn't worked yet. So, hopefully next week we can be back on that platform as well. But I digress. We're a little bit later than we normally are. Thanks for sticking by us. John Saponaro, Matt Ibby Ibanez, we are holding it down for you each and every single week. And CP jumping in saying, damn, that damn StreamYard. Yeah, we had some issues with StreamYard, but it's for a good reason.
Yes,
it's for a good reason that we will get into in a little while. We have some news on this show. You may notice that the things look different. But anyway, before we talk about that, before we talk about our New York Mets, it is time to talk about the tattoo I just got. No, I'm just kidding. It is time to ask my co-host how he's feeling. Ibby, I know the last 20 minutes or so have been a little stressful for us, but we're here. We're ready to rock. How you feeling?
John, I'm feeling well. Thank you for asking. As always, it's Wednesday. The red light's on. The red light's finally on. As we find, it took us a little bit of time, but like you said, it's for all the good reasons, and we'll get into that in a moment. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to talk about those things. Let people that are here know, that frequent our show, that frequent our chat, that interact with us, what's going on with us, and what's going to be happening moving forward. Like John said before, bear with us for now. It's a little bit bare bones. We're not working with an entire set, if you will, for this week. But by next week, we're going to have everything rocking and rolling. And I'm very excited. And I'm ready to get into everything about the show and the Mets as well.
Well, Ibby, I'll offer you the opportunity. So we were supposed to have a guest on this week. We were supposed to talk to Todd Frazier.
Yes.
I did tweet out that there was a scheduling issue, not only with us. It was actually twofold. It was on our end because we've got some news now, and it was on Todd's end. So it all worked out great. Todd Frazier, former Mets third baseman, will be joining us on this show next week. So that out of the way, I did tweet about it, but in case you're watching live, which by the way, hit the thumbs up button, Todd Frazier will be joining Ibby and myself next week in our regular time slot. Ibby, do you want to talk about the Mets or do you want to talk about the news? Do you think people want to know the news as to why we were late and what is going on? Or do you think we should hold that till the end?
I think we should open with it because I think the people that stuck with us are the ones that usually frequent our show the most. If there was a lot more people in here at the moment, I would say let's start with the Mets. But I think the people that are here should know why it took us so long to get started, and I think we should start on that note.
Okay, so you may have noticed that some of our graphics specifically are different. And that is because after several years of working together, Ibby and myself, and working with the Premier Podcast Network, formerly Chop Sports Media, Ibby and I have decided to take this show, and I have decided to take my other show, The Goddamn Jets, to a different network. Yes. Shout out to everybody at Chop Sports and at Premier, who have been a great home for us over the last several years, including Dave. A lot of you guys know him as Sturch, including Chris. A lot of you guys know him as Gooch. Those folks that were involved at the very beginning. Shout out to my buddy Jimmy Palumbo, who is a great comic. He was in the movie Beer League as well. He actually co-wrote movie Beer League with Artie Lang. He is the reason why I met Ibby. He is the reason why I got involved with Chop Sports in the first place. And so, they platformed this show and the Goddamn Jets. The Goddamn Jets started off as an Instagram Live. It's a little different of a genesis, but they put me and Ibby together. They platformed us first as a podcast, then as a YouTube presence, then as a live stream and a simulcast to the podcast and all of that stuff. So they have been absolutely a great home for us over the last, what has it been? It'd be 3.5 years, basically.
Something like that. Yeah, I think we started
like that, going on 4 years.
2021.
So anyway, we have decided to go to a different spot. And that spot we feel like will be a good home for us because it is another sort of startup. But unlike Premier Sports, which really cuts their teeth as far as combat sports go, big into the wrestling landscape and UFC and MMA, which is all great stuff. That's kind of their mainline trajectory. We are going to go with a big network that is Big Four driven, Big Four sports, and has a huge focus on baseball. And a lot of this happened at first at the QBC. a couple months ago, and then really started to take shape over the last couple weeks. And that is with Brella. John Minconi has basically called on us to be the Mets podcast over at the new network that he is launching, which is Brella Sports. And so I think we might be the first people actually broadcasting anything on behalf of them. But
I believe we are.
they're going to be doing some great stuff. I know
Yeah.
he's going to have his own show. John might join us. John is working right now. John is running a pitching clinic currently. John may join us during this show. I sent him the link. If he can step away for a couple minutes, he will join us. He's been a guest on this show before. He's obviously joined us at the QBC. And over the last 6 months or so, we have become really good friends with John Minconi. He's a dude. And so we're going to take the show, pretty much the same show that you guys know and love, by the way. We're not changing anything.
Nothing's changing, yeah.
The graphics are probably going to change, which is why we had this little stumbling block here. So the look will change a little bit. The show is going to be the same. It's still going to run on our YouTube. It's still going to run on our Twitter starting next week. And we're still going to have a podcast. And the podcast will be fully migrated and integrated. So if you're a person who's watching this live, and you're like, what the hell's going on? I'm not sure, because sometimes I want to listen to the show instead. You'll be able to find us already because we are going to migrate over our current podcast. So all the backlog episodes will still exist. They'll just be at a new home. And everything, if you've already subscribed to us on Apple or Spotify or any of those audio platforms, you will not have to resubscribe. That is the plan. So, Ibby, with that said, before we get into the comments, do you have anything to say? Because I think I talked a lot about it.
I think you covered all the bases on that, and it's great. You do a great job with covering everything in that sense. And no, I'm just very excited. I mean, we've been the start of this show 3 years ago has been, start off as an idea. We, again, people who don't know, me and John literally spoke for 30 minutes the day before we recorded episode 1, and that's really all the conversation that we had. We've been running with it ever since. And the show itself has really morphed into what I pictured it could be, what John pictured it could be. And yeah, just to sum up, I think that it's a good fit for us and Minconi and baseball centric and Met centric, and furthering connections and better networking and things along all those lines. Look, we did as much as we could with Premiere, with Chop Sports. We thank them for the time that they gave us, for obviously putting us together and allowing us to run on their channels and things of that nature. So thankful for them, but I'm also just really pumped up for what's ahead. We have plenty of ideas, graphics, music, video, all kinds of different things that we'll be working on in the lab, if you will, aka Canva, moving forward. But just really pumped up and excited. And I'm very even though the Mets offseason has been slow, I'm very excited for what we have coming up on this channel and the guests that we're going to have over the next handful of weeks, and just the conversation in general and the people that are growing with us. Shout out to everyone that joined the show. If you're new, thank you. Please sub the channel, like the video. If you are new because you're one of our brand new, 50 plus followers on Twitter that really took off over the weekend, thank you. I appreciate the follow. Thank you for being here. And if you haven't, make sure you sub the channel. But yeah, pumped up, excited, and ready to talk some Mets as always.
Yeah, let's jump into the comments really quick. And, just shout out to all of you that are shouting us out. And then we'll get into the Mets conversation, I promise. CP saying, big move, fellas. I love it. Patty in NYC, wow. Followed by yes. Armand, congrats. Chris Ram, congrats. Patty saying, that makes me so happy. Robert saying, that's terrific, guys. Congratulations. Douglas Barnes, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Patty also saying, I love John Minconi. Yeah, he's a good dude. And you know what? Right on cue. Carlos Ramos, Minconi is a good dude. Great partnership, to be honest. And then following it up by saying, congrats, guys. So,
thank you so much.
Look, we really appreciate it. Because a lot of what this show has become, and I won't spend any more time waxing poetic about our show, but a lot of what this show has become is really because of all of you in the comments, talking to us, agreeing with us, disagreeing with us, bringing questions to the table, bringing information to the table. Sometimes it's so hard for us to, fact check things in real time, and, all the stuff that we really are trying to do and trying to keep it moving and everything. And so you guys just do such a great job. And I really, really Really appreciate that. I know we both do. So Lisa saying congratulations, well deserved. I have to message Lisa privately. I think I made her upset with something by accident, but we'll talk later about that.
You
I
upset
didn't mean
Lisa?
to. No, I really didn't
Oh
mean to.
my
And
God.
Lisa, if you're still here, I think she may have unfollowed me on Twitter or something. But
Oh.
you know, yeah, listen, we'll talk later. Lisa, if you refollow me, we can have a sidebar conversation. It was totally I think it was a misunderstanding. I know I make a lot of people angry on Twitter. I sincerely did not mean anything by this, and I think she took it the wrong way, but I understand why she might have. Anyway, Ibby, lots of places to go with our New York Mets. And I should mention, for everybody who's just tuning in right now, we do have Todd Frazier on the show next week. I was supposed to be here this week. Some scheduled things for us and for him. He'll be on next week. And I think the week, correct. And I think the week after that, we're gonna have looks like we're gonna have Wardy on. Wardy, great Mets content creator, specifically on YouTube. I think he's gonna join us the following week. So yeah, it's a lot of big stuff. There, and Lisa clearing it up, saying I never unfollowed. Love you, John. Perfect. Okay, we'll talk anyway. We'll sidebar. So Ibby, there's a lot of places we can go with regards to this Mets conversation. I think we should get the annoying thing out of the way first, which is the Hall of Fame. 3 people make it into the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is a joke. Congratulations to the people who got in. Obviously, it's the ultimate prize for people who had an amazing career in baseball. I don't want to say it's a joke from that perspective.
No.
But the voting, the system is fundamentally broken. John Heyman needs to learn how to comb his hair and needs how to fill out a ballot.
I finally got blocked.
I heard you got blocked. Good. I'm waiting to get blocked. I'm going to try so hard. I'm going to double down to try to get blocked with you. Absolute dog shit. Billy Wagner misses by 5 votes.
5 votes.
Now he's going into his final year on the ballot. I know Gary Sheffield is, a bit more of a contentious personality for some. I know he's more of a Yankee and has been around than he ever was a Met, although he did hit his 500th home run as a Met. Gary Sheffield should be in the Hall of Fame too. If David Ortiz gets into the Hall of Fame, which I think he should, Gary Sheffield should be in, Billy Wagner should be in, Carlos Beltran should be in. This is a sham. The guys who got in, I don't even have a problem with.
No, absolutely not. They all deserve
I think more people should get in. Stop gatekeeping my childhood. I watched these people grow up as growing up as a child. So did Ibby, a child and a young adult. Stop telling me that these players weren't great. Because of the ballpark that they played in, because of the alleged steroid use that maybe they did because the cream and the clear, or because they were friends with Barry Bonds, or because they once talked to a guy from Balco, or quite frankly, and I know this is a hot button for a lot of you guys, even if they did steroids, I don't care. I don't.
Because the guy who allowed it's in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly. I don't care about Carlos Beltran and the cheating scandal.
No.
I don't care about that. You've got guys who use spitballs that are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
You got guys that you said the guy who was complicit in allowing it to happen, and Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame. So I'm sorry, man. This is BS. Absolute BS.
Yeah, I mean, look, I always have an ire when it's time for the Hall of Fame talk. And I joked with you via text before. I was like, whenever we do Hall of Fame talk, our numbers usually tank because I think everyone just hates the Hall of Fame. So they're just like, I don't want to listen to this. That's why I made sure I didn't really add it in the description, because I don't want people to get angry.
You're smart.
But I think the guys that got in deserve to get in. But I also understand why some people think that they shouldn't have. People have their thoughts about the Hall of Fame in general. But I have no problem with the 3 that did get in. I think others should have got in. I think Wagner's a Hall of Famer. I think Carlos Beltran is a Hall of Famer. I think Gary Sheffield's a Hall of Famer. I think a lot of guys on that list, Manny, A-Rod, they're all Hall of Famers. It's just this gatekeeping aspect that you hit on, and the fact that everyone thinks that, like Heyman's thing talking about, if I don't vote, I don't vote for him now, but I might force myself to vote for him next year because I don't want to be the guy that keeps him out. It's just like, guy's a Hall of Famer. Just vote him in. Don't be a dick.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's my problem.
Yeah.
It's the cavalier back and forth subjectivity to this. And look, you're right. People hate talking about this. So we're not going to spend the whole episode on this, but Patty kind of says it when she said, who is it that gets ballots? And you get people like Heyman. Now, listen, love him or hate him, and he gets a lot of hate here, I think rightfully so. At least Heyman still covers baseball. You get people who don't cover baseball anymore. And I think the threshold, Ibby, is something like 10 years. Yeah. Like if you covered baseball within the last 10 years, you get to continue to have a vote. Some of these people cover baseball for a couple years, a few years, get the eligibility. Then they might go and cover the NFL for 30 years and they have votes still. Like it's ridiculous. They might go and get into another aspect of journalism altogether and not even cover sports anymore. Yeah. And they still have a vote. You had that guy earlier that was like, well, you know what? I'm going to vote for Sheffield maybe next year. Oh, guess what, genius? He's off the fucking ballot next year. Yeah. So you can't have this. And the stuff with Heyman that you're mentioning, well, I don't want to be the one reason why he's out of the Hall of Fame. So what you're telling me is when you say something like that, because on the surface, I think people like us, Mets fans, people in the chat, a lot of people saying Wagner deserved to be in. People go, well, you know what? That's good. He's not going to keep him out. But I look at it as it's bad. I'd rather see Wagner miss the Hall of Fame by one vote every year, with that one vote being John Heyman, and I could at least say that's a guy with conviction. He doesn't believe that he's a Hall of Famer, no matter what. So you're telling me you do all this research and you're so steadfast on who's a Hall of Famer and when they should get in and how they should get in and first ballot and all the bullshit that John Heyman spews. But then when push comes to shove, if he's the one dissenting vote, he's just going to be like, but I guess let him in. So if you're so worried about protecting the sanctity of the Hall of Fame, where's the sanctity there? Where's the sanctity? If you're just going to be like, well, I mean, I guess I'll let him in because, like, what is he going to miss by one vote? Yeah, but you just destroyed your entire argument. Stand for something.
Everything, again, Carson said it in the comments, like people are saying in the comments as well, like everything's ass backwards. The entire system, as you mentioned, is just completely screwed. It doesn't make sense. It's reporter driven in the sense of if you're nice to someone and if you're a media darling, you're a lock. I'm not saying that's why Adrian Beltre got in. I love Adrian Beltre. I made a bet with someone that he was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and they told me I was nuts. I cashed in on that bet. Thank you very much. But it's because when you have that, it's an unfair advantage, but it is something that plays into all of this, which is wrong. I mean, that's the reason why, look, I love David Ortiz. I think Big Papi's a Hall of Famer, and he walks in because he's a media darling. Like that's essentially what it is. I know TJ's in the comments and he brought up how, Mauer has a great smile, was nice to reporters. So that's why he gets in at the number that he gets in at. So there's a lot of just bullshit. It goes beyond the numbers, which again, baseball is a game that's driven by statistics, and sometimes it goes beyond that, and it's wrong because if you look at numbers, look, I think Todd Helton's a Hall of Famer. I don't like the argument of Coors Field. I think it's stupid when we're holding something against somebody where the place that you're trying to get enshrined into is picking from a place that is a stadium that is within that realm, but you're going to say you can't be in this because you play in said stadium. Well, then get rid of said stadium. And if I'm playing there, it's part of this. I should be allowed in. I think Todd Helton is a Hall of Famer. But when you comp numbers, it's like someone, I saw someone before, I think it might have been Keith over at Shea and Sons, mentioned how, Helton gets in based off of his numbers, but Carlos Beltran does it, and Beltran tops his numbers. And then it's like a whole outfield versus first baseman thing. But look, there's a lot of guys that deserve to be in, should be in. There's a lot of guys that fell off the ballot that shouldn't have fallen off the ballot. I'll forever not understand Albert Bell. He was a dick, whatever, but people didn't vote for him. Still wrong. 10-year span, should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. Carlos Delgado, ridiculous numbers, falls off the ballot in 1 year. Johan Santana, is there an argument there? Potentially. Was he an ace and top end during his time when he pitched over a 10-year span? Absolutely. Falls off the ballot in 1 year.
And by the way,
it's ridiculous.
By the way, Johan Santana has 2 Cy Youngs, right?
Correct.
Everybody I think he has 2. I think he won 2 with Minnesota. Nice. I don't know what that is. And then it always freezes me. It always freezes my video. I don't know what the hell that thing is, but I'm trying to figure out what's up with that. But anyway, he has two Cy Youngs. If if you have 3 Cy Youngs, you're basically an automatic in terms of the Hall of Fame. Because everybody with 3 Cy Youngs or more is in the Hall of Fame. Do you make that same argument? Or maybe not. Tim Lincecum has 3?
See, I think it's 2.
Okay, the same argument applies. Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is that there's this arbitrary scale. Like, there were numbers, and then the steroid era destroyed the numbers, right? 500 home runs, you're in. Steroids, that destroyed that. 3,000 hits, you're in. Steroids, that destroyed that. 300 wins, you're in. Well, pitcher's inability, Tommy John, all that stuff, that destroyed that. X amount of Cy Youngs, you got to be in. Unless we don't like you, then you're not in. Like, the scale is so arbitrary. And look, Carson brings up a good point here. He says, I'm a pure anti-steroid cheating guy, but it's easy to agree that the system is beyond fucked no matter what. And that is a great comment because, look, I understand that my take on put everybody in, regardless of steroids, regardless of cheating, is not for everybody. And that's okay. I would never tell you that you're wrong. My thing about putting all these guys in is that they either all get in from that era or none of them get in. So when David Ortiz is on a failed test report, then he can't get in if Manny Ramirez can't get in. Then A-Rod can't get in and Big Papi can't get in. You can't pick and choose who you liked versus who you didn't like. I think A-Rod is a weird son of a bitch. I think A-Rod is fundamentally unlikable. I think he tries too hard. I think he's annoying as shit. I think it was weird when he did that mirror kiss fucking thing in Vogue or whatever magazine he was in, Vanity Fair. I think he's weird. I hate that he had all this shit to say about the Mets, that he almost bought the Mets, that he claimed he loved them. I hate it. But I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest players to ever live. And it goes back to something I said on this show when we had Roger Clark on. When you talk to me about people being nice guys, Albert Bell, Carlos Delgado, they don't like the fact that Carlos Delgado didn't stand for the national anthem, stuff like that. You've got Ty Cobb, who's in the Hall of Fame. Ty Cobb is, Ibby, listen, at best, the guy is a bigoted psychopath. Can we agree with that?
All-time, if everyone knows, this is an all-time moment John's breaking down on the show when Roger Clark was on. One of the most hilarious moments.
Ty Cobb is, at best, a bigoted psychopath. Ty Cobb was racist. Ty Cobb kept, a child, like an indigenous child, as a good luck charm for a month because he thought it was helping his streak. And then when his streak wasn't, when his heated streak ended, he just left the kid. Yes. Ty Cobb was a dirty player who used to drop kick people in the knee when there were no rules. So again, at the very best, you're describing somebody who is a racist, bigot, probably misogynist, sexist psychopath. At the worst, he is an alleged literal murderer. There is a tie for Ty Cobb to having committed a murder. He's in the Hall of Fame. At that point, I don't care who else. Manny Ramirez did steroids a couple times and lied about it. Yeah, TJ, look it up. I swear to God. I'm gonna get a civil suit from the Ty Cobb estate at some point. There are all kinds of allegations about Ty Cobb doing terrible shit off the field. He was a maniac on the field and hurt people, playing dirty, playing crazy. So if he's in the Hall of Fame, I don't want to hear that Albert Bell was rude to me once as a reporter. I don't want to hear that Manny Ramirez was too aloof. Yeah, Andrew Acevedo, Rhino, what did you just click onto? You clicked onto my annual rant when we get to the Hall of Fame on how Ty Cobb is a piece of shit. And if he's in the Hall of Fame, I don't care what list the guy was on, how many failed tests they had, if they helped the Astros cheat with a buzzer and trash cans. I don't care, because there is no sanctity in the Hall of Fame if that guy who was alleged to have maybe committed a murder is in the Hall of Fame. If that's the case, then put Aaron Hernandez in the Hall of Fame in the NFL.
Christ almighty.
What's
No,
the difference?
I get it. I
Amy,
get
what's the difference? I'm joking when I say that, but what's the difference?
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna let you keep going. That's all. Just keep going.
That's it. I'm done. I'm done with fucking Ty Cobb. I'm just saying. Anyway, we can all agree Billy Wagner got shafted. To take it from
Billy Wagner got shafted. He did.
Billy Wagner got shafted. He'll probably get in next year. I hope so.
God willing.
He is arguably the greatest left-handed closer of all time, and I just don't understand how if you say that it's not enough. Yeah, was a righty, broke his arm, and started throwing 100 miles an hour with his left hand. That alone should get you in the fucking Hall of Fame, by the way.
Yeah.
Throwing
100 miles an hour. Like 5'8".
Yeah, being 5'8", breaking your arm, your dominant arm, learning how to throw with your other arm, and learning how to throw 100 miles an hour.
Insane. One of the craziest baseball stories.
That's a Hall of Fame story. Yeah, forget about anything else. Anyway, so you've got that. I think Beltre should be in. I think Helton should be in. I have no problem with Mauer getting in. It's fine. Because that's the thing. I don't gatekeep guys out. When I grew up, my early adulthood, Mauer was a great catcher.
I often think about when it comes to Mauer.
Long enough? I don't think so.
Probably not.
And he's a very pedestrian first baseman in terms of his numbers, no power, all that stuff.
Right.
But, listen, I have no problem with him getting in. But I have a problem with him getting in and Beltran not, and Wagner not, and other guys not. Right. Guys who aren't on the ballot anymore, Delgado, Bell, you mentioned them.
Yeah.
So, it's bullshit, man. It's bullshit.
It's all bullshit, and I think we should table the Hall of Fame talk and move forward so we don't lose more people in the chat or during the show. Granted, I do love when John flips out on Ty Cobb. I think it's fantastic. It's one of the best parts of the Hall of Fame talk. But in terms of that, hopefully we see some former Mets get in next year, and Billy Wagner and specifically Carlos Beltran get in.
Okay, this is my favorite comment of the day. TJ, you've always got hits, but this is a banger. The Ty Cobb killed someone and had a small child as a valet into Billy Wagner got robbed of being in the Hall is an all-time transition. It is. It is.
Oh,
but you know what?
God.
They connect somehow. Ibby, we can talk about a lot of stuff with our Mets.
We could.
We're at 27 minutes. I don't know if you want to start a new conversation here or just throw to the break really quick and then come back with a clean slate. It's really up to you with regards to where we go from here.
Throw it to the break. We'll come back and then we'll get into all things Mets since we got a little clouded there with Ty Cobb and potential murder.
If you are watching live, the break is 20 seconds. Quick ad spot. We will be right back. It is John Saponaro. It is Matt Ibby Ibanez. It is Till Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube. We'll be right back. Yo, we are back with Till Mets Do Us Part. We are live on YouTube. No Twitter this week, but we'll be back on Twitter next week as we work through some of the issues here, handling the transition. If you are just joining the show, Ibby and I announced at the top that after a lot of careful consideration, we have decided to part ways with Premier Podcast Network, formerly Chop Sports Media, and we are headed to Brella alongside John Minconi to be their Mets coverage. We are super thrilled. We are grateful for everything Premier and Chop did for us, launching this show, helping us launch this show and get us to the place that we are now. But we are super excited for this move forward where we should be back to audio versions of the show starting next week, simulcast, multiple streams starting next week, all that stuff. We're probably going to have a different logo and a different look. But if you subscribe to the channel, you'll never miss a beat. If you already subscribe to the podcast, the RSS feed is going to migrate over, so don't worry. We'll be back with that. All good. Anyway, Ibby, lots of stuff to talk about with our Mets. Thank you guys for all dealing with my insane rant about Ty Cobb and the Hall of Fame. We're past all of that. Ibby, the Mets, when we look at what's gone on over the last couple days, it's really the bullpen, Ryan Stanek, some other names being mentioned, and it's the DH. There's a lot of will they, won't they in both places. So I'm just going to toss it to you. Should they go in either direction? And if you could only pick one, which one would you prefer them be active in? Which one of those markets?
I mean, if I can only have one, odds are I'm going to choose some stability within the bullpen, mainly because I'm tired of the constant year in and year out retooling, repurposing, refilling of an entire pen. It's not the way good teams operate. I know bullpens are fickle year to year. I'm not saying that go out there and give Ryan Stanek 4 years. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But if you gave a guy a 2-year deal, 2 year with with an option or whatever it may be, I want something. I want some more talent and I want some more stability within the pen. And I think going out and getting that makes a lot more sense in comparison to, yes, I understand that the likes of Justin Turner, Jorge Soler, JD Martinez are better than Mark Vientos and DJ Stewart, but at least there's still the inkling that Mark Vientos can be a strong power hitter and provide something. And I'm more willing to risk that as opposed to risking more reclamation projects within the pen. I would like to get somebody in there that has a little bit of cachet, if you will, a little bit of a track record to provide for us on a consistent basis, because I think that's what the pen really needs. And I think that the pen needs to be a lot stronger than what it was last year, since we're still unsure about how much length we're going to be getting from our starters.
Yeah, look, keep the comments coming in with regards to this conversation. Douglas Barnes saying has to be relief pitching if it's only one of the two. And then we've got Yamid saying the pen. A little typo there, but it's the pen. Look, that's basically in lockstep with what you're saying. And I agree. I agree with you. I agree with them. I think if you're only going to do one, there is not enough talent as it stands right now in the bullpen. Now, bullpens are fickle year to year. I like some of the moves that they've made, the low risk, high reward swings. I think one of the things that David Stearns has always been good at over his tenure as a GM/president of baseball ops is building a bullpen. I think that's one of the things that the Mets have historically not been good at, especially in this year this day and age where we've transitioned into bullpens being so important. I think the Mets have been a little bit behind in terms of that. So I think it's easy for fans to go, look at these guys, a bunch of no-name dudes. This is what the Mets do every year. They're going to be terrible. It's not going to work. Well, I understand why you feel that way, but it's a different guy calling the shots. And the guy calling the shots now is somebody who is known for doing this and known for doing this to a high success rate. Now, that said, I've always said on this show, give me more stuff in the bullpen. I like people in the bullpen that can throw 100 miles an hour. I like people in the bullpen that can throw a slider with a spin rate that breaks your neck. Like, that's how you get out of jams. Now, look, is that the be-all, end-all? No, of course not. But it helps, Ibby. It helps you get out of jams if you can throw some wipeout pitches. When Edwin Diaz doesn't have his best location, he still throws 101, 102. He still comes up there with a wipeout slider that's 92 miles an hour. Like, it makes a difference because it's hard to hit that, period. So, yeah, I'm with Carson, who says, new topic. This was from right when we came out of the break. Throw the fattest bag of all at Ryan Stanek now. Now I'm with you, Ibby. You don't give a guy a 4-year deal. That's stupid.
No, Hector Neris wants 3 years, 30 million. Like, you're not getting that, man. I'm sorry, you're not.
Give, high-end guys that money. You give a closer who has dependability and reliability, a la Edwin Diaz. You give him that kind of money. You can't keep going into your bullpen with multi-year deals and $30 million and $40 million and $50 million contracts and all of that stuff. But they do need to get some talent in here in the bullpen. Wandy Peralta is another good option. Neris, I like. Again, just not for that dollar amount. And Ryan Stanek is a good idea. Look, Ibby, I don't love the concept of going back to David Robertson, but I would.
Neither do I.
I don't love it, but I would take him. Now, here's the difference. If they get Ryan Stanek, I'm good with that being the high-end move. If they get David Robertson, I also want Ryan Stanek. If they bring back Adam Ottavino, which I also don't love, But if they do, and he just said on Foul Territory that he was interested in coming back, if they bring him back, then I want Ryan Stanek also. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm okay with bringing back Ottavino. I don't want to. I would stomach it. I'm okay with bringing back Robertson. I don't want to. I would stomach it. But then I think they need an additional arm talent. If they go really high end, somebody with a ton of velocity, ton of stuff, a more recent track record of high level success like a Stanek, despite the fact, they maybe a little bit of a down year. Like, if they go that route, then I'm okay with kind of putting the bullpen together. If they go Robertson, Ottavino, even Peralta, I like Peralta, but I think you need two guys then. So, I think some of these guys, it's good to get one, and it's okay. If they get two guys, if they get one of these, if they get an Ottavino or a Robertson, they're going to have to get two guys. I don't want, one's not enough.
I mean, I don't want to say like I don't like bullpen talk or talking about these guys, because look, bullpens are very important and they matter. I just like I've said, you've said, others have harped on this the entire offseason about the fickleness and the up and down nature. It's like, it's very hard to get attached to names. And I know some people freak out and they attach to the bigger name because they remember certain spots, or they just have a name that catches more so than others. But again, some of the top end bullpens last year, the Yanks, the Brewers, are filled and filtered with names that you've never even heard of. It's like, you have to develop, you have to get these guys within, which is why the focus on the farm is so strong right now. And I know people don't like hearing that, but it's the truth. You have to be able to build from within. You have to be able to call guys up and work them into this entire system, into this entire process, because without that, you're going to keep on doing this, and then it's not going to work. So Stanek is the guy. Joe DeMeo has been pounding the drum on that. Others have as well. I'll join and say that of the guys that are there, I would opt for that. Yes. Would I also like a Wandy Peralta, another lefty in there? Yeah, I don't think it would hurt to have another lefty. Will they do both? Who knows? At this rate, it seems like they're pretty much locking in on what they have, and maybe you get one more addition here or there, be it the offensive side if they are opportunistic, if you will, if the market completely bottoms out, like we talked about last week. But I feel like we're going to get at least one bullpen addition. Stanek would be nice.
Yeah, let's jump back into the comments here. A lot of stuff coming in. TJ saying, with the staff that is assembled, shortening the game with the pen is the most important remaining move for them. Big year for Hefner to develop these other pen options too. I agree there wholeheartedly. Then these next comments, Ibby, kind of transition the conversation for us. They touch on the question I asked you and answered myself and posed to the chat, but they also kind of segue into the DH spot. So I'll kind of take them all at once, and then we'll get your thoughts. Yamid saying, why spend on Soler? He's inconsistent and injury prone. Only 2 times in his 10-year career he reached 30 home runs. I don't want anybody's grandfathers either, so no Justin Turner.
Hey, we stand Justin Turner, but I understand.
We do stand Justin Turner, but I do understand it's a fair point. Darren saying the DH plays more than the bullpen, but at least the Mets have options for DH where their bullpen needs reliable arms. I think that is the best, most succinct way to put what you said, what I said, and what a lot of the comments are saying. Then we've got Chris Ram saying, stabilize the pen. Let's see what we have in Vientos. And Charlie saying, DJ Stewart, Vientos is still an upgrade over he whose name shall not be spoken and others. If we're doing one, it's the bullpen. So Ibby, look, you know how I feel. I know how you feel. We both want both pieces. We both think it makes sense for them to get a bullpen piece and a DH at the very least. I would love my dream finish to the offseason within reason would be a DH and 2 arms in the bullpen. If you told me that the Mets signed Justin Turner, Stanek, and Wandy Peralta, I'm dancing in the streets.
Yeah.
I think that is a perfect end to the offseason. If you told me they got 2 of those 3 guys, I'm okay with it. Because I want 1 DH at least. I want 1 DH and I want 1 relief pitcher at least. So I think they need both. But I think the point that a lot of these people have been making in the chat, that they do have some internal options that are not terrible. I agree with that. I've been on the Vientos needs a chance to prove what he's got since 2 years ago. I've also been on the DJ Stewart, what he did in the latter half of the season, deserved to be brought back and at least given a chance to make the team. So it looks like they're going to give both of those guys a chance. And I can't be disingenuous because I said give them a chance before. But I don't think either one of them should be handed a job, because I'm also being consistent. I don't think anybody should be handed a job in Major League Baseball, especially a young player like Vientos or a largely unproven player like DJ Stewart. DJ Stewart's 29 years old. He has first-round pedigree. Maybe he unlocked something in terms of power potential last year, and he's a late bloomer. Cool. I'm good with that. But, Ibby, I don't think either one of them has to play. And I think if you sign Jorge Soler, yeah, they're going to get less options and opportunities. But let's be for real. Their opportunities are going to come all the same. And so I think to dismiss it out of hand on a short-term deal for a DH, I think it's foolish. I love David Stearns. I trust David Stearns. But personally, I think it's foolish to not enter into the season with at least a known commodity of some ability protecting Pete in the lineup so that Alvarez doesn't have to do it as soon as the season starts. Do I think Alvarez can do it? I do. Do I think he should be forced to do it week 1, series 1, game 1? I don't. I think it's better off if he hits 6th or 7th instead of 5th behind Pete. It's just my opinion.
Yeah, and we'll get to some of these comments in the chat in a moment. I'll star a couple since some of them make a lot of good points. But no, the way it's going, if they were to go the DH route, it makes more sense if it was Turner because of the platoon aspect, the working in here and there, the older player keeping fresh, allowing others to still get looks, keeping, let's say, a DJ Stewart in the minors as depth and backup so he still gets his at-bats. He could still stay hot, stay warm, I should say, as opposed to just sitting on the bench. There's a lot of ways that it can go. I still think that they are going to opt the way of allowing Vientos and Stewart to compete with each other to find out which one of those guys is going to be the DH and then the other being in AAA. I'm of the thought process that Vientos would be the DH and Stewart would be in AAA. I think that makes sense. I think it's the route that they're going to go. And look, do I think that Jorge Soler is better? Yes. Do I think that JD Martinez is better? Yes. Do I believe that protecting Pete Alonso should be paramount for this team if they want to get the most out of it? Yes. But from the looks of it, and the reason why I chose the title for this episode that I did, the plan does seem to be clear, and the plan is youth. The much needed youth for this team is going to come whether people like it or not. I know they want to hang on to we're going to compete in 24. I still think that they can. But I think you're going to see the likes of a Mark Vientos. And I'm going to say, I brought it up. I know other shows have talked about it. I found the stats as well for September because everyone talks about how Vientos finished. Look, they're solid numbers. Can you hang your hat on everything when it comes to just a hot September? No, you can't. But for Vientos, he had 84 at-bats. He had 12 runs scored. He had 20 hits. He had 6 home runs. He had 11 RBIs. He struck out 26 times across those 84 at-bats. And his slash line was 238, 273, 476. Now, if you extrapolate that over, say, 500 at-bats, does that equate to a guy who's hitting 20-plus home runs? It very well could. Is that good enough for someone batting behind Pete Alonso? It very well could be. Are you willing to sit through the ups and downs of a player finally getting a full-time shot? That's where that's where the big question comes in. I think this team is going to do that. I'm starting to believe more and more that the money that's spent the rest of the way is going to be focused on the bullpen, whether it's 1 or 2 arms. I think we're going to see Mark Vientos. I know we spoke last week about Brett Beatty getting a full-time shot at third. I think we're going to see Mark Vientos get a full-time shot at DH. That's just where I am right now. I think other players are better. but I understand why they want to get the most out of their young players and finding out what works and what doesn't, so then we can find out what we have to get rid of to better ourselves moving forward.
I will say this. While I disagree with that, not with your assessment, I think your assessment is right. While I disagree with that logic in building a team, you notice how I'm not burying David Stearns for it, because I personally disagree. I think there's a better way to build a competitive team with the options that are still available while still having the opportunity to evaluate that talent. But I don't think it's worth burying David Stearns over, because the two players that you just mentioned, Ibby, Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos, are going to get a chance in 2024.
Yes.
It seems like they're going to get a huge chance. Now, even if they bring in, let's say, Justin Turner, he affects both of them. To a lesser extent, Beatty, but he'll play a little bit of third base. He would play mostly at DH. So he's going to affect the playing time of both of those guys a little bit. Even with that, Ibby, both of those guys are still going to get a big shot throughout the season. And the reason why I can't fault the logic that Stearns has is because for both of those guys, and some of you are going to kill me for this, but just understand that it is the truth. And this is the good with the bad. This is what comes with that. If you want to give them a shot, you have to understand that this is true. Ibby, I know you're not going to disagree with me here. For Beatty and Vientos, it's their last shot. They had, especially Beatty, a huge chance last year. Vientos had a lesser chance. But obviously, towards the end of the season, he played a lot at third, a little bit at first, DH. And I think he would have played more, Ibby, if he hit a little bit better when they first had him up. I think towards the end, they just were like, okay, take it and run with it and come what may. And he hit. Yeah. But I think he would have played. I think he would have played more sooner had he done more with the opportunities he was given. I understand that's a chicken and egg scenario, but that's just how life works. Beatty was given a huge chance. So for both of these guys, it's a last chance. And I'm going to bring up this comment from Armand. With the Ken Rosenthal report of Marte getting at bats at DH, how about signing Jock Peterson to be used in the outfield and DH platooning with Vientos and Marte and have DJ Stewart start in the minors as depth? I think from Armand, that's an astute observation for a few different reasons.
Carson.
One, Jock Peterson makes sense. He's a guy we have not talked about a lot on this show. I'm not going to be mad if they sign Jock Peterson. If it's Peterson instead of Soler or Turner or whatever, cool. I don't like the idea of Marte getting consistent at bats. Carson tweeted about this. I don't like the idea of Marte getting consistent DH at bats because I don't think that Marte is a good enough hitter to get DH at bats, like over the course of a full season. Now, if you're saying use the DH spot to keep guys fresh, so that means Marte, that means Lindor, that means Nimmo, that means Pete. Sure, I'm good with that too. But Ibby, I think that's why I've always been so adamant about not signing JD Martinez, aside from the back issue. If you sign JD Martinez, when he plays, he is a DH and a DH only. If you sign and you pick your flavor, Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, Justin Turner, they're not just DHs. Now, look, Soler, not going to win a Gold Glove. Peterson, not going to win a Gold Glove. Justin Turner used to be a terrific third baseman. He's obviously lost the step, but still decent at third, can still play first, even played a couple games at second base. Those guys allow you to have the fluid flexibility to let Marte DH a game. And you could put Peterson in right field or Soler. They allow you to put Pete and DH let Pete DH, and then you can have Vientos play first, or you can have Justin Turner play first, or you know what I'm saying? You can swap these guys around in a way that makes sense so that you can still have flexibility. So I think that's why that's an astute comment from Armand, because I think a move like that covers a lot of bases. And look, I said DJ Stewart deserves a shot, so I am not being disingenuous when I say he can start in the minors. Deserving a shot doesn't mean you get one. Deserving a shot means you go to spring training. If you hit, you make the team.
Yeah,
listen, if the Mets sign Jock Peterson, let's just say, let's sign one of these DHs, and they go into spring training and it means only one of Vientos or Stewart can make the team, well, you both better hit in spring training. And guess what? Whoever hits makes the team. Whoever doesn't goes to AAA.
Right.
And then whoever makes the team is on a short leash. Because if they don't hit for the first 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, guess who's coming? The other guy.
Right.
Or somebody else who's better. Do you know what I mean? Like somebody like a Drew Gilbert. If Drew Gilbert's tearing the cover off the ball, maybe it's him. I know I see a lot of mentioning of Drew Gilbert here in this conversation. It's a little too early for me to say that, but it's fair to mention it in this context. Ibby, again, I think it comes down to building a successful team with the available resources that are in front of you, and there are still a lot of good players that you can get on short-term deals, and I think it has to do with evaluation, but also just making guys earn it. And to me, you can do all three of those things. That's why I would do things the way that I've been preaching, is because I think that you can evaluate, I think that you can compete, and I think that you could force guys to earn it by just signing a couple of players to short-term deals. I don't think it blocks you in 2025 and beyond. I don't think it blocks any players that are young players. You sign Jock Peterson or Jorge Soler and Drew Gilbert's tearing the cover off the ball. You don't think they're going to find a way to bring him up?
Right.
Of course they are. If you sign Justin Turner and Luis Angel Acuna is tearing the cover off the ball, you don't think they're going to find a way? Of course they are. Not everybody's going to return to form.
Yeah, it's the reason
why
I like the 1
ways to bring
deal.
guys up, injury or ineffectiveness. So I just think there's so many ways that you can skin this cat, and I think they need to do more.
Yeah, and look, again, I know people understand what I'm saying, but I'll just reiterate in case people don't. Every time, or for a majority of the times when I'm speaking from the standpoint of what I'm seeing and what I think they're going to do. Yes, I think that you can get better as a team by adding some of the pieces that are still out there, especially from the DH perspective. But I understand at the same time. So it's like it could be both ways. I'm not speaking on both sides of my mouth. I'm just saying I understand why they might be going that way. But I also believe that they can do better by adding someone else and then create further competition. Because if there's anything that we've learned to this point, it's that they are positioning themselves with 1 year type of players like a Harrison Bader that's not really going to stifle you or, not allow you to let someone like a Drew Gilbert find a way onto the team, or a Jet Williams or an Acuna or whoever. That's the reason why they're on 1 year deals. They see what they provide. And if it's not good enough, guess what? I got someone down low that's doing great. Shuffle them in. I don't care. This is 1 year. This is play money. Adios. Like, that's how it works. Some of the questions that I saw in here, I did see one here from S-Man. I want to just pull up real quick, just saying how, from John's comment before, Marte's not a good enough hitter. He was hurt the whole year. He was swinging with his arms, no core at all. Understood, S-Man. Thank you for being here.
If I may,
yeah,
I agree. I think Marte was hurt all season.
He was.
And I think Marte is a better hitter than that, even at his age. And I think he's a better player than what he showed. I just want to clear that up. What I meant was he's not a good enough hitter to be your everyday DH or your most of the time DH. He doesn't provide enough power. He doesn't provide enough extra base threat. And like Carson said, if Marte's your DH or McNeil is hitting behind Alonso, you're asking to lose. Because like Rosie said, Pete has never had protection in the lineup. Failing to protect him yet again is unforgivable. The two of them made my point better than I could. I like Marte, and the Mets are tied to Marte whether I like him or not.
And I know that people don't like, and some people don't even look, but some people aren't fans of projections or looking at Steamer or Bad X or anything along those lines to see what players might be, on the cusp of doing in the coming season. But when you look at Marte's numbers, I think he's projected for like 12 to 15 home runs and decent batting average, on base, whatever, not a lot of power. You want a little bit more. You want a little bit more juice. It's bad enough if you're asking that out of your right fielder, let alone your DH. Like, you're expecting a lot more from those positions, and he's not providing that. And I understand he was hurt, and I was the one championing Marte during 2022 because I thought he was the engine for the team. He provided everything. He was fantastic. But he's older. You're coming off these injuries. You don't know what's going to happen. He kind of cooled off in winter ball. Like, I don't think you can, and I said this at the start of the offseason, if we're going into this expecting much from Marte, I think that is a mistake because I don't know what he's actually going to provide. He started off hot in winter ball once he was allowed to play, but he's cooled off considerably since. But, also I wanted to just put out there when it comes to the whole protecting Pete thing, shout out to Carson and the guys over at Mets Weekly. I was listening to their show last night. just talking about Pete batting second, and that's a whole other conversation when it comes to lineup construction. But Pete batting second, providing him some protection in that sense, has always been his best spot in the lineup in terms of production. The Mets haven't done that, whether it's the age-old thought process of your power hitter bats fourth, that's your cleanup hitter, that's where you're supposed to go, and you figure it out from there.
I think some of
But
that's going to change, Ibby, because
I think
David Stearns and Mendoza are different kinds of people.
I think we're going to see a shakeup in the lineup. Like I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Pete batting second. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Lindor leading off. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Nimmo batting second. Like there's a lot of ways that they can go about making the lineup. And granted, also shout out to Carson and Mets Weekly. They talked about the top heavy nature of this lineup. No matter how you construct it, you're still probably going to have the same four names amongst them. It just depends on who you're trying to get the most out of. And again, point that they made, and I agree with it. Pete Alonso, I think you want to see him getting up a lot because that's the guy that provides a lot of your offense from a home run perspective, from an RBI perspective. Having Nimmo lead off, smacking a double, and then Pete's up and he hits 2-run homer, you're up 2-0. You kind of start off with a little bit of juice. You know, it's something like that makes a lot of sense. I think you're right. I think David Stearns is a lot more open-minded in that sense, and it's not to call Buck a dinosaur, if you will, because of that thought process, because others still do it. But I think that we're going to see the lineup look a lot different this year than we have in years past.
This is a funny comment from Douglas Barnes before we get into some serious ones. Mets won't sign a DH, so Pete has a down year and they can sign him on the cheap. Will Ponds 2.0. That's a great comment.
They would think that way. I know he
doesn't think that way, but that is a hilarious comment because it's very Mets Twitter-esque, and I love that one. Look, I'm going to take these two comments out of order to just put a wrap on the last conversation that we had before I give my comments on the Pete thing, because I think this is a good and an interesting perspective to kind of take the conversation in before we wrap up. Patty saying, I'm not sure the front office is looking to sign a DH. It should be done already. No. And I would answer her question with this comment that actually came in before the question from CP, which said Hoskins just got 17 million per. Imagine what Soler will command. Ibby, I think when you look at that, that is why the Mets have not signed a DH. Now, look, the Hoskins thing is a different deal. Hoskins, I know he had a torn ACL, and that sucks, and you don't know if it's going to sap some of his power, but they gave him a 2-year deal. This was a guy who was a starting caliber player, no doubt. Slam dunk, first baseman, DH, starting. So what you're doing is you're paying that guy in Hoskins to come back and be the guy he was before the injury. If he is that, he has an opt-out after 1 year, he can go back out on the market. If he's not that and it takes some time for him to adjust, well, you're probably overpaying him in year 1, and maybe you're getting that player in year 2. So that is a totally different scenario that I don't think applies to Soler or Justin Turner or Jock Peterson or any of these other players because they're not coming off the injury the same way that he is. But the way that I think it relates is that I think the Mets are just waiting to see if some of these numbers go down. I think the Mets would sign Jorge Soler if he wasn't in for a 3 or 4 year deal. If they get him on a 1 or 2 year deal, I think they would. Now, we keep talking about Justin Turner. Maybe Turner wants another 2 year deal. Maybe the Mets don't want to do that. He opted out so that maybe he can get Turner didn't opt out so that he can get another 1 year deal.
No,
he opted out so he could get 2 years.
Correct.
Again, maybe another 1 year deal and opt out. Who knows? Maybe the Mets don't want to do that. So I think to Patty's point, I don't think it's happened yet because I think some of these guys, dude, Snell doesn't have a home yet. Cody Bellinger hasn't signed yet. Some of these
Jordan
guys,
Montgomery, Matt
Chapman. Listen, I don't think the Mets are going to be in it, Matt Chapman. But Ibby, we saw it with Carlos Correa. There's a chance that Steve Cohen wakes up. Like baseball and spring training starts 1 month from today. There's a chance that in 3 weeks, Steve Cohen wakes up and sees Cody Bellinger or Blake Snell or Matt Chapman still out there and says, you know what, Dave, call him. Just see.
I think
see if they'll take a 1 year deal. See if they'll, I'll pay him $25 million for 1 year.
I think that with the changeover, I might work on like a meter to put on the show to put in the corner every time John goes a show mentioning Cody Bellinger. I think I want to have the meter go up each time.
You know what? That's fine. I'm just saying it's possible. Like it's just
no. I get what you're saying. I do.
Patty's question.
Yeah.
Is that there's still. Why would you? Again, I'm not saying the Mets are going to do this or even that the Mets should do this. So everybody who's watching, don't jump down my throat. But if you're the Mets, and I like all of these players, everybody I've mentioned, I said on this week and in weeks past, I'd sign them all to the right deal. That includes Snell and Montgomery and whatever. If you're the Mets, why would you sign Jorge Soler for a 3-year deal today if in 3 weeks, maybe you could get Cody Bellinger for a 3-year deal? Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. That would be foolish. Why would you sign Jorge Soler today for a 3-year deal if in 3 weeks you can get Jorge Soler on a 1-year deal? Now,
it's a back and forth.
There? You are, but if you're truly comfortable with your internal options, like they seem to be, then you're not forced to do it, and you're not forced to overpay. So again, I'm not saying that should happen or will happen, but I just look at it from a perspective of, if you can get Soler for 3 years, why wouldn't you just wait and see if Bellinger's market comes down? Or the same thing applies to one of these other guys. Not Bellinger, then Chapman. Not this guy, then that guy. Or for that same player, the Belly Bell. That's my name.
I like that, Chris.
If Justin Turner wants 2 years, maybe Justin Turner will take 1 year the day before spring training starts. So that's why I don't think any of this has happened yet, Ebby.
Again, just to bring up this one, I just came from Scotty Miller. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you haven't subbed, make sure you sub the channel. Thank you for being here. Why is the money man being cheap? I don't think it's more so being cheap. I think it's just being smart with your money. I think like we've talked about multiple times on the show, you can't call him cheap because they are the team that they are right now, and they still have the highest payroll in the entire sport, more so than the Dodgers. The guy has spent money. But as we've said multiple times, you can spend all the money in the world. You got to spend it right. You got to get the right players. Can some of these players add a couple of wins? Absolutely. Are the players out there going to shapeshift and make this team a World Series contender? I don't think so. But again, they can help with some wins. But I'm not going to go out there and call the guy cheap, because I think he's deferring to the guy that he's been wanting for the last 3 years to run the operation, allow the people that he puts in place to do their thing. And to John's point before, I would not be shocked if 3 weeks from now, there are still some guys out there, and if he says, hey, what if we did this? What if I said 3 years and this amount of money? Mm-hmm. Does this work with the plan? Does this work with this? Will they take it? What if we gave an opt-out after 1? Can we do this? Would this make sense? Like, that's still on the table. It really is. And to the
I just want to jump in really quick, Ibby, with this comment, because you're hitting it from Rosie saying, I think Cohen will defer to Stearns. I don't think he will impulse buy. I don't think the Mets will impulse buy either. Just to piggyback off what you just said, I don't think there's going to be a Carlos Correa moment of, offer this guy 10 years, 12 years, a $300 million contract in 3 weeks. I don't think that's going to happen. But I think what you're describing might happen. Hey, I've noticed Chapman's out there still. This is Cohen. Hey, David, I know Chapman's out there still. Does a 3-year deal with an opt-out make sense? Like, where's your thought process on this guy? Do we want to bring him in? Are we really set on Beatty? How set on Beatty? So set on Beatty that if we offer him, we offer Chapman 3 years, $75 million with an opt-out after 1, is that something that you would do if he would take it? Or are you saying no to that regardless? See, that's a different conversation than like Cohen calling up Stearns and saying, hey, go get me Chapman, whatever it takes. He said, go get me Correa.
Right.
He was all in to go get Correa and spend the money because he thought a guy fell into his lap who was a superstar. I don't think that's going to happen. But I do think there's a conversation that might happen in the future that's, hey, if this guy's willing to take a pillow contract, I'll give him one.
And again, not picking on you, Sky. I want to just answer the questions. If you're talking about getting a guy on a short-term basis, who cares how much? He has the money. I'm not talking about buying a team. No, I understand what you're saying, but again, it takes two to tango in that sense. And I think the problem for the Mets, in comparison to other teams, and I've said this before, is in relation to other teams that could still be potentially buying. I've mentioned, whether it's the Orioles, whether it's the Diamondbacks, whether it's other teams that might be viewed in a better position to get further. Those teams have the inside edge in terms of contract on a 1 year. I think these other players, I think the Mets realize that it's going to be tough for them to get them because they want the years. They want 2 years. You want me to come to New York? I want 2 years because I want to be protected. I don't want the 1 year. I want the 2 years. So is giving Jorge Soler 1 year for $30 million smart? No, it's not, because he's not worth
Right.
that. But again, he might be pushing right now for 2 years, $40 million. And honestly, I don't I think he fits, but I understand the hesitation. And again, I know money's not supposed to be an issue. I'm not trying to make money an issue. I think it's just about being smart. You
Mhm.
want to have smart investments. I think that's what it's coming down to. I think he spent willy nilly, up until this point, and now he has someone that he trusts to spend the money properly. I think that's where it's at. That's all.
Yeah. And I think this comment from TJ from earlier really hits it. He says, as the biggest Knicks fan, Ibby knows, I can compare Stearns coming in to Leon Rose bringing stability to a franchise. Trust these front office minds. I
I've
agree with that.
mentioned that before with
I'm not a
CP,
Knicks
CP's a
fan.
big Net fan. I mean, I mentioned it before with CP as a Knick fan as well. I don't know if you were in this one for that one, T, but I had mentioned to him how I said something along those lines. Like, it's been a while. The Knicks seem to finally be getting things proper because they trusted their front office. They got the right guys. They found the people that fit for what they were trying to build. It took some time. And that's why we keep on talking about patience, but it took some time. And now you're seeing the Knicks be one of the top teams in the NBA, making some noise. Jalen Brunson, the whole crew, they're doing great. OG, like it takes a little bit of time and effort, and you have to have the right people in place to get it done. The Mets haven't had that in forever, and I think now you have to trust that person is David Stearns. Let the guy work.
Yeah, and Scott Miller saying give them 2 years with a player option for the second year. And honestly, Scott, this is what I've been saying. This is the whole. Ibby's not exactly saying this in this moment, although he agrees that it's possible. But that's the kind of thing that I've been talking about. So I think you and I are a bit on the same page, and I don't think Ibby is far off when he's saying what he's saying. I just think it's not about being cheap. It's about it's what Ibby said about taking two to tango. Because if it's me, and I still think it's possible, and I don't think, listen, Mets fans, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, if you can hear me, we get 3 weeks from now, and Cody Bellinger doesn't have a deal, and Matt Chapman doesn't have a deal, and Blake Snell doesn't have a deal, and Jordan Montgomery doesn't have a deal. You'd be crazy to not see, hey, because to Ibby's point, they might want to go to a more contending team for 2024. But if you're willing to offer them high AAV with 1 year, 2 years and an opt-out after one, or 1 year and an opt-in, now all of a sudden it starts to become a little bit more enticing. That's all I'm saying. I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm not saying it will happen. All these guys will probably sign before the next 3 weeks. But if they don't, it'd be stranger things have happened. So the last thing I kind of want to talk about here is what you were touching on with the lineup, because I think there's a few fun places to go. You mentioned Mets Pod, I think.
Mets Weekly. Yeah, Mets
Weekly. Excuse me. Thank you. Sorry about that. I was thinking also along those lines, Jolly Olive over at Shea Station with Jerry Blevins was talking about Nimmo maybe not being in the leadoff spot.
Right.
And S-Man has been throwing this out saying Bat Pete 3, Lindor 4. Now that's not to hate on him. That's not the alignment that I would go with. But to your point, I think there are ways you can get creative with this lineup. And I know I said I didn't want Alvarez protecting Alonso, but I think what Carson said here makes sense. And this is where I would think maybe I would want to go if they make no changes. Nimmo, Alonso, Lindor, Alvarez. To me, that might be the best 1 through 4 you can offer. Now, if Marte is Marte of old and he proves that he can hit in the top 2 in the lineup again, you can move some of that around. But that, or honestly, the same with McNeil. If McNeil is hitting 330, you can hit McNeil. If McNeil's hitting 330, you can actually bat him first. And you can put Nimmo into a more power position, because I think Nimmo's going to hit 20 to 25 home runs.
Yeah.
So, but to start the season, and I think Carson was just listing these as like the best offensive players on the team, but I think that's how I would bat them to start the season. Nimmo 1, Alonso 2, Lindor 3, Alvarez 4. Your thoughts?
I like the way that looks. I'm on board, and I've liked the idea for a long time of your best hitter being in the 2 spot. Now, again, it's always dependent on what you have within a lineup, and Carson's not wrong in saying that the top 4, no matter how you go about putting it together, it's still just a top four, and the rest isn't going to be providing you that much until proven otherwise. We can say that now because we don't know. We have to wait until the season starts to see what they actually provide us. But yeah, I think that providing protection on a nightly for Alonso with what you have is the right thing to do. I like the idea of Nimmo, Alonso, Lindor more so than Alonso batting fourth and praying that Mark Vientos can be a true power threat to make things proper because you're doing everything you can to lengthen a lineup. I think you're at a point now where you're just trying to score runs. And you might be a team that scores runs in bunches at that point. And if you want to have a top loaded lineup, which based off of the talent that we have on this team, I think that's what you might be doing. So yeah, if you told me Nimmo, Alonso, Lindor, Alvarez, if you told me that was the way that you went, if you told, I really think that the combination of Stearns and Mendoza is going to give you a bunch of different looks on a nightly, not every single night, because people then be, obviously bitching about, there's no one set lineup and this and that. That's a whole thing we'll talk about during the season. But I do think we're going to see different types of lineups that show and showcase whether it's Nimmo batting 1 or Nimmo batting 3 or Nimmo batting 4 or Alonso batting 2 or Alvarez batting 2 or Lindor batting 1. I think we're going to see a lot of different looks until we see something that actually starts working, and then that might start settling as to the nightly look, if you will.
A couple good comments here to that point. S-Man saying, a big fan of Nimmo eventually moving down. He doesn't run at all, which, he doesn't use his, he doesn't conventionally use his speed out of the leadoff spot the way that you would necessarily want. I don't think that's the hugest knock against a leadoff hitter, but it is a point well taken. And I don't think he's ever going to develop that because he would have at this point. But then the positive is he can hit 20 to 25 with a 380 on base percentage and he gets big hits. So I think that's a great point out of S-Man. Carson saying, if I see McNeil and Marte anywhere near the top of the lineup, I'll be on CNN for arsonist activity. I agree, Carson. I was saying if they are to the point where they're player of old and the Mets don't have any additions, and then you can use them to lengthen out the lineup. Again, McNeil is not a high on base guy unless he is hitting for a high average. His on base percentage really links to his average. But if he's hitting 330 with no power and you're not getting stolen bases out of the leadoff spot anyway, and you want to tell me, okay, well, we have a leadoff hitter that's hitting 330, not a lot of power. He's not going to steal, but neither is our other guy. We'll put him 1. We'll put Alonso 2. Now we can put Nimmo 3. You know what I mean? If you can move things around like that or Nimmo down to 2, whatever, that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for. But I would have to, I know Carson's making a funny comment that he's not joking about because he's very serious that he doesn't want them in those spots. But I think Ibby, I would have to see a pretty significant sample size to Carson's point before making that move. That's what
makes the early start of the season. I think it's going to be the most interesting thing to see how they go about really going with the lineup. Are they going to try and shoehorn people into spots because they think, well, if this works and we have a lengthier lineup, and instead of just being in the top 4, we could have a top 6 or 7 if these guys resort back to what they were? Or are they going to be, instead of reactive, are they going to be proactive? And are they going to have the 4 names that we mentioned be the 4 on a nightly basis? Or are they going to try to make McNeil a part of this at the top? Or are they going to try McNeil leading off and then pushing everyone else down? Or are they going to try to push for Marte to be somewhere in the top line? That's going to be the most interesting thing, in my opinion, when it comes to the lineup, the first month of the season. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they go about handling the lineup within the first month. If it's going to be different every night, are they going to focus in on those 4 guys that we mentioned? Are others going to step up? I think that's going to be very key with how this team really gets off to start the season, if you will, in the first month.
Yeah. It's funny because I think this is a good comment. It's a good question based on what I said. And I'd like to know, people are giving some of their takes right now on how the lineup would shake out and how you would do a lineup. If you're listening and watching and you want to type out a full lineup, go ahead. I'd love to see we would love to see what you can come up with. But Rosie's saying, who's batting in the 5th spot in the lineup that I projected, which is Nimmo, Pete, Lindor, Alvarez, in that order. Honestly, Ibby,
I know
to start the season, It's one of three people, but really one of two positions. I think to start the season, if you're going Nimmo, Pete, Lindor, Alvarez, and I'm not saying this is what the Mets are doing, I'm saying that's probably the lineup that I would do. If those are your top four, I think your 5-hitter has to be your DH. I think
Agreed.
It has to be either DJ Stewart or Mark Vientos, because you can go depending on if it's a righty or a lefty. That's what I would do. Or you could, I don't love this because I don't think the power potential is as big, because I think he needs to hit further down in the lineup. I suppose you could, I don't love either one of these players, but you could go, man, I'm not even going to say it. No, they have to be six.
I know what you're going to say.
They have to be six. It has to be the DH. I've talked myself out of it. So I think in that lineup, Nimmo, Pete, Lindor, Alvarez, the 5th hitter has to be your DH. It either has to be Vientos or DJ Stewart if they don't make any changes. And then after that, then I think you could start to toy with, in the 6-7 spot, you go either Beatty or Bader or Marte. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where you start to mess around 6, 7, 8 down in the lineup. But, I think the way that works out, your 5-hitter has to be your DH. And to go all the way back, that's why I think the Mets should bring in a DH.
I agree.
Which, I think as I said that, Rosie said, I don't think you can rely on Vientos and Stewart. They need a DH, which is why I've been saying they need a DH. Go out, get a DH. Now, all of a sudden, Nimmo, Pete, Lindor, Alvarez, Jorge Soler. You like that better? I do. Nimmo, Pete, Lindor, Alvarez, Justin Turner. Nimmo, Pete, Lindor, Alvarez, Jock Peterson. It's better. It's just better. TJ, if only we had a Ty Cobb type of hitter for this lineup. Yes,
we need some murder in baseball. So that's what we need.
That's what we need. A true murderer's row.
And there's the line. No, I agree. I think the DH would be the spot in the fifth spot. I think it makes the most sense. And I agree with you, obviously, when writing it down on paper. If you said Soler, Turner, JD Martinez, Jock Peterson, whoever you like, whatever machination of it, makes a lot more sense, would be better. If you're asking me right now, I think that person is going to be Mark Vientos. I think that's what it's going to be, unless things, again, severely bottom out. But I think people will eventually cough up some money, and these guys are going to end up places. But right now, if you're asking me, on January 24th, 24, as the snow is starting to melt outside, I think it's Mark Vientos. Whether people like it or not, I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of it, but I understand why they're doing it. I'm not saying I'm the biggest fan of it, but I think that's where we are headed at the moment.
Yeah, Ibby, I said that was the last topic, but let's touch on this. Armand brought it up a long time ago, and I do think it's not something, this is not the kind of show where we dive super into things like this, but it is a point to bring up in Mets land. The deal with Ortiz, the number 26 player in the 2024 international prospect class, according to MLB Pipeline, fell through because of player age falsification.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Mets were super active, signing international free agents, signed a lot of good ones with a lot of upside and all that stuff. People were very far away in a lot of cases, whatever.
They were second in baseball in comparison to the Rangers, who are at 1, I believe.
Correct. And so, obviously this isn't good. It sucks, but it's an obvious walk away if you're the Mets, right?
No, I think, I don't know if it was true. If someone put in the comments saying that he falsified his age and he was 32,
I saw that in the comments too, but I don't know if that's exactly.
I don't know if that's true, but if it is, Jesus Christ, that's we've heard these stories before, and we know. I think, was it Miguel Tejada? Miguel Tejada at one point, was lying about his age, and people have always questioned about Pujols. Some think that he was telling the truth; others aren't really sure. Fausto Carmona, different names, Roberto Hernandez, a bunch of stories from yesteryear. This is
I like to remove Pujols. Oh, Patty said it, and she says, no, I was kidding.
Okay.
I like to remove Pujols from that. Not that you're lumping him in, because I know there's been speculation. I like to remove, personally, Pujols from that equation because he hit 700 home runs, and it doesn't matter if he was 19 when he signed or 106.
That's true. he showed out regardless. It doesn't matter if he's 100 years old. He still hit all those home runs. But yeah, obviously, it's an issue. And obviously, that when you're dealing with international players, sometimes these types of things can come up. So you're being proactive. And look, you were sold the bill of goods. You found out that it was a lie, and you back out. I know people were harping on the Mets that are more into this space El Duque is another one. Yeah. More people that are into the space, like Daniel Wexler on Twitter, who's a lot more well versed in this, along with I think it's BX Fan with a bunch of numbers. He's also a great follow if you are curious about international type of free agents and players in general. He does a great job when it comes to the Mets. You should give him a follow. But yeah, they're a lot more well versed in this, and I know that they were getting flack. The Mets were for this entire happening, but now we have a little bit of substance behind it as to why it happened, and obviously they made the right call.
Carson saying Mets walking away from signing a 32-year-old, and y'all saying Stearns is indifferent. Great. Armand following up saying Michael Marino, who's a guest on the show about a month ago, right?
Yes, he was. Yes.
Saying Ortiz's age was older. So it's coming from Michael Marino. You had him on. I was not here that week. I would love to have him back on so that I could talk to him as well. Just didn't have the opportunity that week. I think I was out of town or whatever the hell it was. So, Ibby, before we get out of here, because there's a lot more people watching now than when we first started, and I understand why, because we didn't get the StreamYard up at its normal rate. Usually it's up a day before, and people can kind of notice.
Hold on, before we go on. 50 people here before we even continue with what we're going to say. If this is your first time here, please make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. The more times we say this throughout a episode, the more times it gets picked up. So don't think I'm just being a record here. It's with reason. You have to keep on saying it so things can get picked up within the algorithm. So again, 50 people here, first time here, make sure you hit the sub button. We're trying to grow this channel. We're on our way to 700 subscribers. We want to get there. So if this is your first time here, make sure you hit that sub.
Perfectly said. I do want to answer the questions for a lot of folks because there's John says, I'm late. What did I miss? And James Dowling said, is that why there was no episode on Spotify last week? So yes. For anybody who may have missed it, listen, don't sign off right now. If you've already watched this from the beginning, just want to hit on these things really quickly. So we said that Todd Frazier was going to join us on this show this week. I tweeted about it earlier, mentioned it at the top of the show. Todd Frazier will be with us next week. He had some scheduling issues, and we had some scheduling issues, so it all worked out. We just pushed it back 1 week. So next week, the pride of Tom's River will be right here until Mets do us part with myself and Ibby. The following week, I believe we will have Wardy. So many people on here, and with good reason, love Wardy. We're just waiting to confirm, make sure, when we're a little bit closer. He's got a busy schedule, so do we, but we think that he will be on the following week. He was supposed to be on this next week, but obviously because we pushed everything back, everything went back 2 weeks, but whatever. We love having Wardy on to be a second time on the show. We've been trying to align with him. So we're looking forward to those two guests, and obviously two different flavors of shows, right? You got Todd Frazier on there. He's going to talk from a player's perspective. You got Wardy on there who, is like us out there, just, grinding away, putting out great content, does a deeper dive than we do with some stuff, a less deeper dive than we do with some other stuff. So it's just always great when we work with other, Mets content creators. Those will be over the next 2 weeks. And the reason why there was no podcast episode last week on Spotify, and there will not be this week. And to answer John's question of what did I miss? Well, what you guys may have missed if you were not here at the top of the show, the reason why we started late, the reason why there was no podcast on Spotify, the thing you missed, the reason why these graphics look different, all of that is because after about 3 years of doing this show together, first as a podcast, then as a live stream and a podcast and a simulcast and all of that stuff, Ibby and I have decided to move on from Premier Podcast Network, which was at one point when we first started, Chop Sports Media. They were great to us for 3 years. Hell, they put us together. So they've just kind of gone in a different direction where they're a little bit more fight sport oriented, UFC, MMA, WWE, all that stuff. And we had the opportunity to partner with somebody who we think is going to make for a great partner that is a more Big Four oriented sports channel, and with a heavy lean on baseball because of who it is. And that person is John Minconi, and that organization is Brella. So I think this is the first official kind of podcast or live stream. We were trying to have John on if he had the free time to jump in, but he's actually doing a pitching clinic as we speak, and so he couldn't jump on. But he's a great dude, and we're super thrilled to possibly, or at the potential of where we can go, where we can take this show to the next level. Ibby and I are always trying to put out the best content we can, always trying to make the show as good as it possibly can look and sound and be for all of you guys that tune in and give us your time. We really, really, really appreciate that. Mets Vent just jumping in saying, let's go, Minconi.
Love it.
And we just felt like that was the next genesis of what we do. And so, again, shout out to Dave and Chris and everybody over at Premiere and then Chop Sports before that for helping us grow and get to the point that we're at. But we just feel like the next obvious evolution of this show is for us to be on a baseball-centric, Big Four sports-centric network, and that's what John Minconi and some other folks are trying to build over at Brella. So, yeah, it's a startup, but we're really happy about the possibilities there. Yuki saying, John and Ibby, congrats. Thank you for that. So, Ibby, look, there's a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon, and our show will not change. There's no corporate thing that's changing.
Still us.
Only thing that's going to change a little bit is the look. We're going to, and that's not even being mandated.
Freshen it up.
Decided, we wanted to freshen it up, and what a better time to do that than over the transition. So that's why things this week are very bare bones. Hopefully by next week, everything is 100% locked in. Also, it might, take a week or two to just kind of, hey, this will change, and then this will change, and then this will change in terms of the way things look and the presentation. But the show is the same. The RSS feed is the same. So if you subscribe on Spotify or Amazon or Google or Apple, the shows will continue to crank out. I believe, Ibby, the plan is to have it for next week where the shows are back on audio version. So it'll be 2 weeks out of not having that. But I think by next week, we should have the audio version back up. And I would like to try, because we are going to have Todd Frazier on. And so it would be great to have that as an audio version as well. If not, we always do have the audio here on StreamYard, and maybe we can put it out after the fact. So I don't know if Eduardo's ever commented before. Says, great job and good luck. Thank you for that, sir.
Thank you so much, man. Make sure you sub the channel. Everything John said is on point. Very excited, very pumped up. I love when stuff like this happens because it gets the creative juices going again and trying to just sharpen things up. Like we said, logos wise, presentation wise, ideas wise, videos wise, anything and everything to make us sharper, to grow the audience, to get more people here. Again, 46 of you are here at the moment. Thank you for being here. Sub the channel, like the video. It goes a long way. The more that like it, it gets out there more. The more that sub, the better the reach we get. So all things that are great. We're moving up and up when it comes to YouTube. We're doing our best to try and continue that growth. And we think that a partnership with Brella, as well as Minconi, connections within baseball, within the Mets, it's going to really add another dimension to this show. And we're very excited about that. I can't wait.
Yeah. And, for those of you who care, and I'm sure there's a few, just because like me, you have overlap and you're maybe a Mets and Jets guy. I do host another show. Right now we're on hiatus because the Jets are terrible and they're not in the playoffs, and haven't been in the playoffs in 13 years. So we get to take this month off always. But I do have another show that's called The Goddamn Jets. I've got two amazing co-hosts on that show, Tom O'Boyle and former flight crew cheerleader Kimberly Cantoni. And that show will be moving to Brella as well. Effective once we return from our break, which will be, at the start of the NFL offseason again, because the Jets are absolute dog shit. And the other thing is, I know I said this a couple times, but there's still a lot of people watching and I need to mention it. Nothing will change. If you subscribe here, you can still watch us here. If you subscribe to our podcast, you can still listen in the same spot. We're not on Twitter today as a live stream, but that's okay. We'll be back on Twitter next week. So the simulcast will exist between YouTube and Twitter. So if you follow us on social media, if you subscribe and have notifications on YouTube, if you subscribe on the podcast platforms, you got us. We're not changing. We're not going anywhere. So that's that. I thought you were going to say something.
No, I got nothing else. I think that's the show. I think we did a great job.
There's the update on my tattoo for everybody.
And there's the tattoo. John keeps getting tattoos, and they look sharp.
I got to be honest. For everybody who asked, I didn't want to open the show with this because we had so much to get to. I have a tattoo on the inner part of my forearm. Stevie Mac lies. Breaks will now be 33 seconds long instead of 20. Actually, we had gone up to 30. I think we might go back to 20. Spoiler alert. I have a tattoo.
There you go.
On my inner bicep already. I've had that for a very long time. It's my first tattoo. This raven up here. Ibby, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you. This, especially right here,
hurts.
This was the most painful.
There's nothing there.
This hurt so bad.
There's nothing there.
I have tattoos. Like, I have a lot of tattoos.
I can imagine.
Like this, for everybody who has tattoos, you know what I'm talking about. Right here, right by my armpit. Mother of God, that hurt so bad.
I can imagine.
I thought I was going to throw up. Scotty Miller, where's your Mets tattoo? Maybe one day. I have never found. I've toyed around with ideas, and I've never found one that I quite like well enough to do it. So, but yeah, Patty and NYC just laughing. She was asking about the update. So if you don't have tattoos, you probably think they all hurt. If you do have tattoos, some hurt and some don't. And I've fallen asleep during tattoos. I did not fall asleep during this one. Let's just put it that way. It hurt so bad. I was like, just, you know what? Why don't you just kill me? I was like, I asked you to do this and I paid you to do this. And I'm now regretting all those decisions. Anyway, that's my tattoo update. Hopefully next week when we record the show, it'll look a little better. It's still pretty raw.
I don't doubt it. I guarantee it's going to look great. And hopefully when we come back next week, everything's going to look a lot sharper for you guys. Thank you for being with us. And hopefully our Mets give us some news to play with as well. But either way, we will be here. The conversation is going to be great. We'll have fun with you guys. You'll always be a part of our show. And can't wait to do it.
TJ, I see the tattoo that says Ty Cobb, first Hall of Famer. And we got Stevie Mac. Ibby has Mr. Met on the back of his head. You just can't see it because of the hat. That is true. Can confirm. No, can't confirm. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Is Till Mets Do Us Part. Thank you for bearing with us. We started a half hour late today because of all the changes and all the stuff that was going on. We appreciate you guys for sticking it out the hour and a half. We love you all. We will see you guys next week. Peace.